door B?
Well, Senator Kennedy, I know that I've pushed the envelope.
Okay.
And
Do you regret it?
I do regret it, Senator.
Do you
Kennedy.
regret it because you didn't mean it? Or do you regret it because it might cause you not to be confirmed?
Senator Kennedy, I regret it because I think it's contributed to the coarseness of our discourse.
Possibly give anyone comfort that you would be a fair and impartial judge.
Thank you, Senator Cruz, for giving me an opportunity to address this. As I mentioned to some other members of the committee, this was a comment that I made in church where I was relaying a joke that someone else had told, the point of which...
Senators John Kennedy and Ted Cruz grill Dale Ho, Biden's judicial nominee, over his radical past statements and expose his unfitness for the bench. This fiery hearing shows exactly why America needs leaders who defend the Constitution against activist judges.
Did you say, I support compelled disclosure of political donations by wealthy individuals but not by minorities?
First, Senator Kennedy, thank you for the gift of the notepads for my children.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. I don't recall using those words before, Senator. I do remember...
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I've got a bunch here. You've described yourself as a, quote, wild-eyed sort of leftist. Do I have that right?
Senator, I think I was referring to a caricature of the way that I think other people may have described me, not how I would describe myself. And I want to assure you that I understand that the role of a judge is to set aside whatever personal views that person may have.
I heard your testimony. Have you called Republicanism, well, strike that. Did you say, quote, Republicanism is an anti-democratic virus?
No, Senator, I don't believe I've used those words.
Okay, you're under oath now.
Yes, Senator, I don't believe I've used those words.
Okay.
I do remember saying last year that there was a loss of confidence in our elections that has spread kind of like a virus.
Right, well, that's a long way from calling the Republican Party an anti-democratic virus.
Yes, it's very different, and I don't believe I used those words, Senator.
Right. If you did use those words, will you pull down your nomination?
Senator, I don't believe I've used those words.
But if you did, will you withdraw?
It's hard for me to imagine a scenario in which I would
I'm just
use
saying,
those
assume
words.
it. If you said it, will you withdraw?
If I were quoting someone else saying it to describe that kind of sentence, I wouldn't be expressing my own views. But Senator, I don't believe I've ever used those words. I've represented.
Did you when you sent out those personal tweets about Senator Cotton, Senator Blackburn, and Senator Cornyn? Did you mean them at the time?
Without hearing those tweets, Senator Kennedy, it's hard for me to remember precisely, what was said or what I was thinking at the time. I do very much regret the tone that I've taken on social media from time to time. I know that I've crossed the line from time to time, and
When you crossed the line, did you mean it?
Without knowing the specific context or the specific tweet that you're referring to, Senator Kennedy, it's kind of hard for me to say, but
do you generally tweet things you don't mean?
Senator Kennedy, I would agree with you that Twitter has become a very coarse place.
I don't want to debate Twitter. Do you generally tweet things that you don't mean?
Well, Senator Kennedy, I've contributed to the coarseness on Twitter sometimes by pushing the envelope to break through.
Right, but when you did it, did you mean it?
It's hard for me to respond to that kind of generally, Senator Kennedy, without a specific
You're a smart
example.
guy. Sure you can. You either meant it or you didn't. You got two choices, door A, door B.
Well, Senator Kennedy, I know that I've pushed the envelope.
Okay,
And
do you regret it?
I do regret it, Senator.
Do you regret it because you didn't mean it? Or do you regret it because it might cause you not to be confirmed?
Senator Kennedy, I regret it because I think it's contributed to the coarseness of our discourse.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In his first year in office, President Biden has made a pattern of nominating extreme partisans and radicals to serve in the administration, but especially to serve on the bench. And unfortunately, that pattern continues today. Mr. Ho, you will not be surprised that I want to address some questions to you. And in my view, your record reflects that same pattern of finding someone who has been an extreme partisan, who has been a radical, and President Biden trying to put judicial robes on that partisan and radical agenda. And I would note at the outset that that's not just my characterization. You yourself have described yourself as, quote, a wild-eyed leftist, and further as someone, quote, accused sometimes of seeing discrimination everywhere you look. Is that right?
Senator Cruz, I think the key word in that quote is accused. What I was doing...
Let's start with the first one, wild-eyed sort of leftist.
Well, again, Senator Cruz, I think I was characterizing how others have caricatured myself.
Okay. Well, let's take a quote you wrote in November 2017, and I found it amusing, the exchange a moment ago with one of the Democratic senators about, some older intemperate statements. I would note, just sitting here, this may be a first in that you have tweeted attacks at multiple members of this committee, including Senator Lee, Senator Cotton, Senator Blackburn, Senator Cornyn, and far from being intemperate statements when you were a teenager, and most of these tweets occurred last year. So in the last 12 months, you have engaged, or the last about 18 months, you have engaged in partisan attacks on multiple members of this committee. But you also wrote in November 2017, quote, in these dark times, I've been fortunate to find tremendous sense of purpose in my work as a civil rights lawyer. But as a colleague of mine asked me over lunch recently, Dale, do you do this because you want to help people or because you hate conservatives? What he was getting at is that anger can in fact be a tremendous source of power. For me, righteous indignation can provide a sense of moral clarity and motivate the long hours needed to get the work done. But it's only a short-term burst. It's not sustaining in the long run. Mr. Ho, if you wake up and are Judge Ho, and I recognize that New York is a blue state, but imagine there is someone who considers himself or herself a conservative in the state of New York, who, God forbid, finds themselves in a courtroom where you're wearing a robe. What comfort do you think that litigant would have that you described the hatred of conservatives, the righteous indignation, the anger at conservatives as a tremendous source of power for you personally? How does that possibly give anyone comfort that you would be a fair and impartial judge?
Thank you, Senator Cruz, for giving me an opportunity to address this. As I mentioned to some other members of the committee, this was a comment that I made in church where I was relaying a joke that someone else had told, the point of which...
Welcome back to A Listen Reacts. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash the like button so we can keep pushing back against the establishment narrative. Every time you subscribe and share, you're helping keep truth alive in a time when the elites want nothing more than to silence patriotic voices like ours. Now, let's get into this showdown. Senators John Kennedy and Ted Cruz absolutely tore into Dale Ho, Biden's judicial nominee, and for good reason. This isn't just another routine hearing. This was a full-on exposure of a man's radical history and dangerous mindset. John Kennedy started off by holding Ho accountable for his past words. Kennedy has that sharp Louisiana wit, and he wasn't going to let Ho dance around his record. He pressed him directly on inflammatory comments he made in the past, statements that show open hostility toward conservatives, Christians, and anyone who dares stand against left-wing orthodoxy. Kennedy's line of questioning cut through the excuses and showed the arrogance and double standards that Ho has been hiding behind. Then Ted Cruz stepped in and folks, Cruz didn't hold back. He laid out, point by point, how Dale Ho's past behavior and public statements make him completely unfit for a lifetime appointment on the bench. Cruz reminded everyone that judges are supposed to be impartial, but Ho's record shows nothing but partisanship and disdain for half the country. Cruz brought the receipts, highlighting Ho's past speeches, tweets, and writings and forcing him to confront them in front of the Senate and the American people. The tension was off the charts. Every time Ho tried to backtrack, Cruz and Kennedy were ready with follow-ups that left him stumbling. This wasn't just about politics. It was about protecting the Constitution from activist judges who see the law as a tool to advance their personal ideology. And that's the real point here. Biden and the Democrats want judges like Dale Ho because they can't win on ideas. They need activist judges to rewrite laws from the bench, to force their radical agenda on Americans who never voted for it. Kennedy and Cruz stood as a wall against that corruption, exposing just how dangerous Ho's worldview really is. As a patriot watching this, it's clear. The left doesn't care about the Constitution. They don't care about equal justice under the law. They care about power, pure and simple. And if people like Dale Ho are put on the bench, it won't just be conservatives who pay the price. It will be every American who believes in fairness, liberty, and the rule of law. What Kennedy and Cruz did in that hearing is exactly what we need. Leaders who fight back, leaders who refuse to bow down to the woke mob, and leaders who shine light on corruption and hypocrisy. So if you're tired of seeing America's values under attack, if you believe in protecting our freedoms from unelected activists in robes, then stick with us. This channel will always call out the lies, expose the hypocrisy, and celebrate when strong voices like Kennedy and Cruz stand up for the truth. Subscribe, share this video, and keep spreading the word. Together, we'll make sure the radical left doesn't get away with hijacking our institutions.